So you're a board gamer, but you're becoming a war gamer. Or you're a war gamer, but you find it really hard to get mates to invest in playing war games with you. Or you're just a board gamer who likes deck builders that are a bit quirky. Either way, some bizarre, twisted combination of all of the above. Undaunted Normandy from Osprey Games may well be for you. Osprey Games, they can be a little bit hit and miss. They're definitely on a hit, in our humble opinion, with this one. Undaunted Normandy is a two-player game, and it is a war game. Seriously, it's a war game. It's got dice and stuff. It's supposed to have, if it's a war game, it's got troops, but not miniatures, so there's no painting involved. They're just tokens. But you move them around a battlefield, so it's a war game. But all your decisions are driven by cards that you will draw and build as you create your deck to win. It's a deck builder. It's a deck building war game. There we go. Sales pitch over. Honestly, we are very fond of this. There's a couple of variations of it out now. This one, Undaunted Normandy, is the first one. It's a straight up player versus player. There is a new one out, which we will look at in due course. It does offer solo play, so we'll talk about that in a separate video. But to pitch this one for you, to be honest, I don't think we can pitch it any better. So let's just show you, alright? Being as it's Osprey Games, production value is very high indeed. And it's very well thought out and whatnot. I'm going to say, at the Bunker Club, those who would not be particularly into wargaming, tabletop traditional wargaming with miniatures, have quite enjoyed this affair. Those who are into tabletop wargaming and have had a go at it have quite enjoyed it. And I can't really offer a better recommendation than that for whether this pushes the right, pardon me, don't know where that came from, pushes the right buttons. There are two books. Don't be daunted by them. One is your scenario book, because there's a full campaign can be played out here. And the other one is your rule book. A rule book, but it's so big and thick. Yes, but it's quite nice in that, again, every page does not have many words, and it has many pictures. Osprey do love their pictures, but a good rulebook should have pictures. It should exemplify everything, so that whenever you reach the components, you're already starting to be familiar with what these are. And this one has a degree of straightforward intuitiveness about it. The target age for this is like 14 plus. I would take that with a pinch of salt. I know several kids younger than that who could, I think, quite happily handle this. So judge your audience yourself. And if you are the person teaching the game, take the time to explain all the nuances. And there's a lot there. I'm going to say it's very hard to approach this game, even on a show and tell, and not be wanting to literally play with you. Even though I can't see you, I don't know who you are. You're just watching and you haven't hit like yet or subscribe, which you could do. But yeah, I'm sort of already in my head kind of going, I want to play this with you now. I don't care. Let's just have a game. You have the American forces, you've got the German forces in this one. Okay, yes, I know there were lots more people took part in Normandy and in World War II, but let's just get over that and get on with the game, shall we? It's going to be made up of a range of components and a range of cards. Everything fits together and makes sense. Once you've kind of had a couple of reads through the rulebook, I think you will be quite happy with it. Not everything, and again, not everything happens at once. So as you're playing this game and you're working through the scenarios, new things will be introduced. So there's one mechanic, is your deck building, and that kind of doesn't change, it just builds, okay? And the options that you have access to increase, but your familiarity with what's going on there doesn't. The other aspect of it is the tabletop wargame part of it, which is driven by the cards, but the kind of moving people about and rolling dice for shooting and things like that there, which you would expect in a war game, they kind of do their thing. So the cards do one thing, tabletop does another thing, but they're married by the fact that the cards power what happens on the tabletop. Everything fairly well explained here and shown. There's going to be no confusion over the cards because the cards are faction specific. So you'll be playing with your cards, they'll be playing with their cards. You'll be drawing new cards into your deck from your cards, they'll be drawing new cards into their deck from their cards. Never the twain shall meet. There's different unit types, we'll come to that. The cards are broken down fairly straightforwardly. I shouldn't really do that. A very bad habit with a magazine, especially with a rule book. So you've got a number of different values and bits of information on these cards. You've got one value which is kind of like the initiative value, okay? Determining which card goes first is kind of the big number up in the top. You've then got what deck they're out of, which is usually just A or B, and that's got more to do with where you are in the scenarios in the campaign. Got a name on the card, which generally conveys what the card loosely can do for you in terms of a war games figure. And then you've got the actions that that card can carry out. Now, in the likes of a rifleman here, we're seeing that he can move one tile, he can attack with one dice, or he can control a space. Okay. Likes of a squad leader card. The squad leader isn't actually a figure on the table, a token on the table. Squad leader is an action card, and this is one of the cards that's an example of how you'll increase your deck, because they can bolster or they can inspire. And these are options that allow you to either take a card you've already played and get to replay it again, or add more cards to your deck, and you're drawing them from a supply of cards that you wouldn't normally have access to. So, Fog of War, lurking down at the bottom there. Now, Fog of War is that card that in a deck building game, if you're familiar with it, chokes up your deck normally. They're cards that don't do anything for you. They deny you an opportunity, because if you've got a card hand of, or hand size of like 4 cards and one of them is a Fog of War, that's a card that normally means you can't do nought. Fog of War in this actually has a little bit of a use, because the whole initiative thing. There are times in combat where it will be useful for you to potentially let your opponent go first, so you can see what they're doing and you can respond better to it. Maybe they'll get into a better position where you've got a chance of getting at them. Maybe the rest of your cards are more about controlling that, so you need to see where they go to know what you can go to safely and not get caught. So Fog of War has a use in that respect, which is quite nice, as well as choking up your deck and not really being very helpful. Got a range of different tokens. Again, most of them will be faction coordinated, so you can see clearly on the table who controls what, who is where, who's seen what. But what they'll do for both sides is essentially the same. And then the actual tokens that represent the units. No painting, just got a token, it's got a picture, it's very nice, it's got a name, it's got a couple of numbers on it, and you're laughing good to go. So you've got what the unit title, what the unit type is. You've got a squad designation, so you know whether it's either Group A or Group B, because you can have a couple of different groups on the go at a time as well. You've got a defense value, which is a target number that your opponent will have to roll in dice in order to have a chance of damaging or wounding that character, that unit. And then the token has a flip side. Full, nice, vivid colour, and then a slightly more faded one for if it's been suppressed by like machine gun fire. See, they've thought this through. It's a war game. And then there's the tiles themselves. Tiles are all very picture skewed. They're all lovely, nice artwork on them, and they will usually have just like a designation, because some of the scenarios will talk about specific tiles and specific layouts and things like that. They're scenario driven, and then whether that terrain offers a defense value. So if you had this gunner sitting in here, the defense value of the gunner is 4, but the terrain is offered him a 1. The target number to him would now be a 5. See? Okay, and range adds to that as well. How to do your setup. Okay, so there's an example of a setup board with the units that are going to be involved in this particular conflict. Spaces that they've already scoped out. Your scouts are the people who can go into spaces and add these binocular tokens. They basically mean you've scouted out and checked that it's okay, and then other units can move into them. Your units can only freely move into spaces that you have scouted out. So losing your scout, not good. Kind of a little bit hamstrung there. So you've got to think that through too. You've got your supply of cards, your starting deck. Obviously, your opponent will be doing the same on the other side. Okay, and then boom, we're into how to play. And look at that, how to play is essentially tied up on one page. You can't ask for better than that. Very clear explanation. Fog of War suppressed. Okay. And then we're through into the actions. And this is a very concise breakdown of what every action means. In the first couple of games we played, nobody really knew what they were doing. And it was seconds. Oh, what does this card do? Oh, right, okay. Oh, yes, I can do that. Boom. That straightforward, that simple. Combat actions, what they do, how that works. And again, we're not looking at an awful lot of writing here. And an example round. That's it. The rules are essentially over already. We get a few examples on different actions and how they work. The last time I seen something that was sort of this kind of clarity was the likes of Memoir 44, where it, boom, rules, and here's how those rules happen. I just love nice straightforward bits like that there. End game, and then looking at platoons, how the structures of them worked and things like that there, and an explanation of the different cards and their rules. Okay. Names have been added to the cards in the game data sense that you are in command of real soldiers, not pure abstractions. Some of the names in the US deck are based on those of the original playtesters of the game, but all their names have been generated from names that were common in the period and are not meant to refer to any person living and dead. Quick reference sheet, bing bang bosh, job done. It is not hours of reading, it's minutes. Okay, it's literally minutes. This is one of those lovely games where you can read to a point and go, okay, let's just get this out and have a go. Let's do this initial startup scenario. And oh, okay, what do we do with that? Oh, it's bing, bing, bing. It falls together. Because it's driven by deck building, the complication to Undaunted Normandy is in learning what your cards do in combination with each other. Obtaining those cards and being able to play them. And in any deck builder, that's kind of where the nuts and bolts come together. Your war game is playing down here. It's driven by your deck building. Your success and failure is based on you obtaining cards and figuring out the right way to use those to your best advantage. And of course the scenarios. Because the scenarios then are the things that are going to give you your two challenges, whether you're a defender, an attacker, objectives to be fought over in the middle, which units you can afford to risk getting shot up and losing control of, things like that there. Because what happens here is, when combat is successful, I've been shooting at your gunner, and if I've successfully dealt a wound to your gunner, what happens is you have to look through your decks and remove a gunner card from play. So you've still got gunner cards, but they're going to come up less often. And the more wound that gunner takes, the less gunner cards you've got, to a point where you could potentially still have the gunner on the table, but no gunner cards. Okay? But that token, if it's hit again, comes off the board. And if something allows you to bring those gunner cards back into play, well, next time you've got one, they'll come to your spawn point, if you've got a spawn point in that scenario. Okay? Spawn point kind of, pushes the buttons for the console players, makes you feel at home too. There we go. That's a whole other type of player, and just pulled in here. Console players, you might enjoy this too. So scenarios and campaign play, and this is all about that, and it's just how to set up your decks, your starting decks and whatnot for playing either random scenarios or play it through as a campaign where your deck will improve and change as you play through to the end of it. And there, again, is the wargame thing. Wargamers, yes, they enjoy a straightforward, straight-up fight. Let's have a fight. Ooh, we had a fight, that was fun. But they also enjoy sitting down and going, let's do a campaign. Let's play a series of linked matches where the outcome of each match determines a change to my forces and your forces and what we have available for the next battle. Boom, wargame. See? And that's it. That's the gist of it, really. The tiles are your battlefields. There's no terrain to worry about building. Your tiles are laid out for you, and off you go. You just follow the advice that it gives. And the campaign scenarios are quite good. There's a bit of meat and potatoes here. So you can play a number of straight up fights to get the general mechanic into your heads, learn what the cards do, how you can best use them, and then bang, hit a campaign so you can really put that into practice. So there we go. And tables for you to record the outcomes and whatnot as well, because it's a campaign, so you have to record information. Okay. Now, this has all sort of slid about a little bit. This is now, this wouldn't happen bar for the fact that Bob sleeves everything. And I mean everything. Everything? Everything. He really does. So, there's your tiles, okay? And they're decent quality tiles, double-sided, and that gives you good mileage. And it's all sort of Normandy hedgerows and farmland and things like that there. There's some buildings and things in it for places that you'll have to control. Rivers, bridges, okay? Not a whole pile, but then this is only supposed to represent one particular aspect of one theatre. So it does that and does it admirably. Got our 10-sided dice for doing our combat-y things. And then we have our various cards. We've got our German decks and we've got our American decks. Okay, so there's our Fog of Wars for them guys. And then our examples of A, B, and C. And I think D, is there D? Can't remember if there's D. Maybe it isn't D. It's A, B, and C units at least. So what is normally happening is you've got a bit, like in any deck builder, you've got a base set of cards that allow you to kind of get going. And they'll have like squad leaders that allow you to add more cards. In the early games, you'll generally be drawn from deck A because you'll have your startup hand and your startup deck, which is some Fogs of War and some standard cards, Rifleman, Gunner, Scout. Okay. As you're playing through the game, particularly as you're going into the campaigns, you will get cards like Platoon Sergeant or whatever that allow you to draw from deck A or deck B or deck C. And you're allowed to literally lift that deck and go through it and take the cards you want and add them to your discard pile. And then when you reshuffle to draw again, they're going to be in there. So you're building by choice. It's like Dominions in that respect, where you're spending your gold and you're buying what you can afford. In this, you're playing your commander card, and depending on what the scenario says you're allowed to draw from, you get to lift that and go through it and pick what you want from the marketplace to add in and give you more tactical options. Okay? So it's like command is getting you extra cards, bolster is allowing you to draw up, or no, command's allowing you to draw up, sorry, and bolster is allowing you to add new cards in, and they'll always have a number telling you how many you're allowed to add or how many you're allowed to draw. So you've got like Platoon Sergeant, Squad Leader, and then we're into the combat cards. So we've got Rifleman. What else have we got here for you? Let's sort of get a few of these up. Rifleman from Squad B. And yeah, that's the thing. If you've got different tokens on the table, so if you've got A and B tokens, an A and B card commands those tokens. So it's like the B card, you can command a B gunner. And it wouldn't matter if I had 5 Rifleman cards in my hand. I could order that Rifleman 5 times with that card. So each card, if I played that now, I could choose to move my Rifleman on the map. If I then played that, I could move him again if I wanted. Or I could get him to attack somebody with 1 dice. Or I could get him to control that space. And if I then played that, I could get him to do it again. I could get him to move, I could get him to fight, do whatever. And if I've done that, I can do it again. And again, if I've got the cards, you can keep going. Okay? That's where part of the strategy is in getting enough cards to fuel your actions. But of course, you know, you might have got doing that so far with Rifleman B, and then boom, you're into moving Rifleman A to try and come up and support him, just depending on what you've got. Got Rifleman there. What else? Our Scout. Scout is to say you can scout out spaces up to 2, can attack, can recon. And whenever you move through spaces, whenever the Scout like moves through spaces, if he goes 2 spaces, he'll end up drawing Fog of War cards into his hand. If you take ones, you'll end up drawing fog of war cards. So certain actions you do, certain actions that you are forced to take, will end up drawing these fog of war cards from the supply into your discard pile as well, potentially clogging up your deck and thwarting some of your actions, but equally can sometimes be useful to you too. So that's where you might be faced with a situation where you're wanting to use one of your command cards really to get drawn up, because you need better cards in your hand, but you know now that you've added an awful lot of fog of war, so you're probably going to draw fog of war, so you end up having to use that command card to add better cards back into your deck, trying to thicken it out again to allow you to cycle through better to get good cards out. Oh, Platoon Guide, I haven't actually seen him yet. Just we got left at the bottom. So you can bolster one or guide one. So he's a nice little sort of just a wee basic one. The turn initiative is decided by both of you sacrificing a card. You'll sort of do it face down, then 1, 2, 3, turn over. The person with the highest initiative will get the initiative counter, and they'll take charge and they'll go first. Once you've finished exhausting all the cards you can do, that's your turn over. Then your opponent gets to go again. So a turn can be a very brief thing if you've got a handful of fog of war, or it can be quite a long thing if you end up with a few command cards in there that allow you to redraw cards and add them, play them again, things like that there. It can pad it out quite a bit. Now you will have noticed that there are no tokens in this box. But Andy said that there was tokens. Tokens were important. They signify things in this game. Why are there no tokens? Well, there's no tokens because, as we've already said, Bob has a penchant for sleeving everything. And I believe in a previous video we might have already mentioned, Bob sleeves his tokens. I jest you not. Personally, I think this is a bit obsessive. These are the tokens for Undaunted Normandy, sleeved. They're in plastic sleeves. Oops. That's a bit much in my mind. In fact, worse than that, okay? Worse than that. This token, don't know if you're going to see this. This token, see the kind of tanned area? This token is quite small. And it's got a surround to stop it sliding. That's a bit obsessive. Otherwise, they fill the dial. Okay, that's slightly more kind of normal. But there's a whole host of things. We've got gunners, we've got riflemen, what else have we got? Scouts, snipers, mortar teams. We've got control icons to tell you whether it's American or Germans that control it. We've got scout symbols with the binoculars. We've got group spawn point decals for A, B, and C. Radar towers. There's our initiative token. And various control point symbols and things like that there too. All of which have little things to stop the token sliding about inside. I swear that guy finds whole new ways to make me think that he's lost the plot. And that's it. We've kind of seen pretty much everything that's there. Okay. I'm going to put these in horrible order because that will annoy him. Yes, I am that mean at times. So there you go. Look, that's Undaunted Normandy, kind of in a nutshell. Honestly, it's good. There's nothing more we think we need to say. And probably taken, you know what? Probably taken twice as long to say it than it actually needed. It's deck builder, and it's a deck builder, but it's a fairly simple deck builder. Okay. It uses a deck building mechanic. It's a war game, but it's a simple war game. It is wargaming light, but if you have stood there at the side of the table and you've been looking at tabletop wargaming and thinking, you know what, I kind of like what's happening there. I'd love to do that, but I don't have the time. I don't have the money. I don't have the patience. I don't have the skill. Undaunted Normandy. It does the same job. It gives you a battlefield. It gives you people to move around. It gives you dice to roll for combat. But it's driven by a very light deck building mechanic that you have a lot of control over. The games are quick. Yeah, and that's it in a nutshell. We think it's really nice. I honestly haven't seen anyone get up and walk away from the table going, no, it's not for me. It's not for me. We'll be honest, the first time I seen it and played it, kind of looked over the shoulder, went, you know. And then I seen it getting played and more. I thought, well, okay, I better have a look at this and sort of see. I made the assumption looking at it that it was one of these kind of very complicated war simulation kind of games. Far, far from it. That being said, it's not overly simplified. It doesn't detract from the subject material. It doesn't make it light-hearted and easy. You still have to time what cards to acquire, when to acquire them, when to use them. And I've played several matches now where it's been down to the wire. It's been down to potentially the next card getting played determines which side wins or loses. That is nice in a war game. That's nice in a board game. And the fact that this manages to press both switches and deliver on that, I think, is a testament to how good Undaunted Normandy is. We will take a look at the second wave of this, which is the North Africa campaign. But again, it adds a couple of new elements, but it builds on the ideas here. It's self-contained. You don't need to have it, but it's going to look very nice when there's a series of these sitting on the shelf from different theatres. And as I say, that is something that's potentially going to have that collectability aspect for people where it's going to look nice on the bookcase in with the board game collection, and you're able to sit there and sort of say, yes, it's a board game, but it's also a word game. It's a, it's a man for all seasons. Hopefully you found that in some way illuminating. Maybe, I don't know. If you did, give it the old like thing, give it the old share, give it the old subscribe. Go on. You know you want to. And check out more on Undaunted Normandy. You pick it up for a reasonable sum. I think it's in the 20s to purchase that. And definitely for a 2-player game, it's nice. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.